Guys, welcome back to Wide Awake News Radio, hour number 2. We are joined now by Matt Weidner. And when Matt first came to the program, he was on talking about advocacy work that he's done against fraudulent foreclosure. And I'm assuming Matt's still doing that work, but he's now branched out. He's a politician, and I say that air quote politician now. He's a candidate for office in Florida, and he's going to talk to us about that. I briefly talked to him before the program because he was listening in the first hour about what has got me fired up tonight, which is yet another governed by false flag, governed by hype, another staged phony terror event that is leading to the destruction of freedom in this country, period, plain and simple. And Matt's got some stories he's going to share on that later in the program as well. But since we only have an hour with Matt, and he's got a lot of stuff he's bringing to the program tonight, let's get him on here. Matt Weidner, thank you very much for joining us again. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing fantastic, Charlie, and thank you for having me on again. It's really a pleasure to listen to you, and I'm on the chat room right now, see all these Americans wide awake all across the country. And, you know, these listeners that are on here really are the people that know what's going on. And it really is pretty scary when you think about the rest of the millions of Americans out there that don't have the kind of awareness and perception that you and your listeners do. Those are the people that scare me. I feel quite comfortable in this chat room with all your listeners.
Yeah, and you know, I early in the first hour, when I was opening with somewhat of a rant, I told people, look, if you don't want to be in this, if you think for 1 second, right, that this room isn't, I'm not necessarily constantly surveilled, but if you don't think the topics we talk about or the things that you type in this chat room or anywhere else on the internet is not under at some point being scrutinized by a bureaucrat, or either that you're hanging out in this genre or an actual word you might have typed, if you don't think that can happen, then or if you're afraid of that happening, then you need to not be in this chat room. You need to not be in this genre. You need to plug in to Thursday Night Football and bury your head in the sand, because anything that is, it's very, very obvious, Matthew, that anything that is said on the internet will be used against you. Anything that the areas you visit are going to be categorized and pigeonholed and going to be investigated by a security industrial complex that I don't know how to describe it other than a complete totalitarian Stasi style, but even more efficient than anything the communists had in East Germany or the Nazis had in Germany during World War II. I mean, we are better at it than anybody in history.
Yeah, well, let me help you out a little bit with that. There's a documentary that I encourage everyone to watch. It's a PBS documentary on Frontline called Top Secret America. And I encourage everyone, Google that, Top Secret America. What this gets into is the military-industrial intelligence complex budget. They approach it primarily from a financial perspective. And they look first at what is the amount of military budget that is on books in front of Congress, which frankly is just a fraction of the real number. But they actually drive out and go to these physical sites that exist all across America, which are domestic surveillance security centers, which are surveilling Americans. And, of course, you know out there near where you are, the largest intelligence complex in the world exists ostensibly to collect data from all around the world. But, of course, we're the heaviest users of it, and it's all being used on us directly. So every phone conversation, every text, every Internet search is being directly watched and, frankly, quite intensely watched by our government. You got to ask the question, why? What are they doing with it?
Yeah, well, look, they can get a patsy about every 6 months or so.
Right.
They can find some idiot who is 21 years old and either mentally ill or persuadable to go along with something that he has no ability to achieve. That, first of all, it's not a crime. It's not a crime to hate this government. It's not a crime to hate somebody, right? It's not a crime to hate a system of finance or things like that. But when you have the ability through technology to single out like cattle an individual and then use whatever means necessary, in a lot of cases it's financial or it's having somebody buddy up with them and get him to go along. We've seen it time and time again, about every 6 months or so, like clockwork. We justify the security industrial complex.
Listen, Charlie, when I read this article about the guy getting arrested down there in Manhattan about 2 weeks ago, I was in Manhattan at a meeting of the GMAC Bankruptcy Committee. This was a court proceeding at the Federal Bankruptcy Court there right near World Trade Center. And the thing that was so mind-boggling about this hearing was PricewaterhouseCoopers, an accounting firm, was making a petition in this bankruptcy court to be paid nearly $250 million. I said $250 million with a B, to review the conduct of GMAC and residential capital in the context of foreclosure proceedings. And I got to tell you, I'm not surprised anymore, but that one knocked me out of my chair. Now, picture the scene. You're in a courtroom, right, in Lower Manhattan. It's packed with attorneys. I figured there got to be 100 attorneys in there,
right,
averaging probably $500 an hour. So a courtroom of 100 attorneys billing away at $500 an hour, while a company made a petition to be paid $250 million. And, you know, so the point of that is that here's this one guy, this one-off lone wolf, if you want to call him. But my first thought was, what about all the other criminals that are walking around Wall Street in their suits and ties, right, that are far more guilty of crimes against this country than this dope is, or whatever he's accused of?
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. GMAC, I'm looking at a list now because this is a topic for a video. I pulled off a 15-page report today of companies that are still owing you, the American taxpayer. GMAC is still on the hook for, and I'm assuming this is Ally Financial now.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. They still owe you, everybody listening to me right now, $10,752,090,618. So congratulations on that. And you're right. You have a room full of people billing away at $500 an hour. And the true crime that's happening against the people of this country, it's already taken place. Everything else is, it's theater. It's a theater song and dance. But we can
listen. Here's the perspective I came away from up there. All right, you're sitting in Manhattan in New York City. Let me tell you, it's hard to get a hotel room because the occupancy is off the charts, and you can't get one for under $400 a night. New York City is doing fine. It's fantastic. I always make a point of talking to taxi cab drivers and the people that are out there working, and these guys say everything's doing great up in New York City. Mm-hmm. For me, New York City is like this black hole where all of Americans are writing their mortgage payment, writing their car payment, their student loan check. They're sending these payments directly to New York City so those financial vipers can scrape off their cream and ship it offshore to somewhere. And one thing to keep in mind, this is a nonpartisan issue. My rule is I'm not going to discuss a political race with anybody unless they can speak to me intelligently about Ben Bernanke and Jamie Dimon and Lloyd Blankfeld. These are the real people behind the scenes. I don't care who you're voting for president if you don't understand what the banking cartel is doing, because there's no question but that those guys have a bigger impact on your daily life than anybody you'd ever bother to elect. Let me tell you something. Right. If you're a shop owner, if you're a business person, when you check out that cash register every day, these guys are already in your cash register before you get to it to the end of the day. They've already rifled through your pockets. They've already taken the money out of your bank accounts and your cash registers, and nobody's talking about this. Look, we've already had, 3 debates now. You haven't had a single word spoken about the banking criminal cartels.
No, you're 100% right, and we'll get into, we're going to take a break here in about 30 seconds, and on the backside of that break, I definitely want to get into that topic because you're right. 3 debates. The first one had everything to do with the economy and not Ben Bernanke, not the debt crisis in Europe, not the continuation. Ladies and gentlemen, listen to me. Right now, there's enough money owed through TARP alone. $700 billion in TARP. There's still enough money owed to the American people on that to buy an average of 1.2 million homes in this country right now. That money that's sitting out there that's owed to you, the taxpayer, 1.2 million homes can be bought with that. We're going to be back with Matt Weidner, Weidner Law, and more W.A.N.Radio Radio in just a second. Hang tight, guys. Charlie McGrath of WideAwakeNews.com here with a question from my friends at Austin Rare Coins and Bullion. What do they know that we don't. Insiders and a who's who list of elite have made it crystal clear that we are headed for catastrophe, putting out warning after warning, urging people to batten down the hatches. Billionaire George Soros has recently been dumping stocks and at the same time acquiring millions in gold. In fact, in a recent interview, he was quoted as saying, "I'm not here to cheer you up. The situation is as serious and difficult as I've experienced in my career." Out of control government deficit spending and a Federal Reserve that's only solution seems to be print more fiat currency will lead to a weaker dollar and massive inflation on necessity items such as energy and food. If you have wealth to protect, please visit my friends at Austin Rare Coins and Bullion. Gabe Elton and the folks at Austin Rare Coins and Bullion have many Wide Awake News customers because they're honest, they're fair, and they won't sell you paper promises or product they do not have. Call Gabe Elton at 800-552-4109. That number again, 800-552-4109, or visit them online at austincoins.com.
Remember this name, Carnivora. That's CARNIVORA.com. What if I told you that this 100% pure and natural product was delivered directly to the White House at President Reagan's personal request at a time when only the president was able to obtain it? Reagan used this amazing product, Carnivora, successfully, a product derived only from nature that has the intelligence to instinctively attack abnormal cells only without harming a single normal cell, and the power to actually wake up critical immune cells from dormancy to attack foreign invaders that don't belong in our bodies. Carnivora is now obtainable by anyone who wants to get healthy and stay that way. Call 1-866-VENUS-FLY and protect yourself with 17 naturally occurring compounds that will unleash powerful immune defense. That's 1-866-VENUS-FLY. Call 1-866-VENUS-FLY and get your Carnivora today. Visit carnivora.com.
Will 2012 bring the Mayan end of world or the global banking collapse? In 2007, one man, Mike Dillard, made 5 predictions which forecasted the 2008 economic crisis and the pending Eurozone collapse. This week, Mike unleashes 3 brand new, shocking, must-watch videos with predictions for the coming year. www.the3videos.com. Over the past year, Mike Dillard has helped thousands of ordinary people create and recover wealth by tapping into the black box investing strategies the big banks don't want you to know about. www.the3videos.com. As the European banking system implodes and governments collapse at breakneck speeds, the next 12 months will be the most anticipated and important months in modern human history. This will make 2008 look like a walk in the park. Everyone will be affected. Go to www.the3videos.com now. Learn how to prepare your family and prosper during the global financial collapse.
Guys, welcome back to Wide Awake News Radio. Matt Weidner of Weidner Law is our guest for this hour, and I want to get into this right now, and because it'll probably be the next 2 segments to talk about this. But when I called Matt the other night and said, look, he's across state doing his work, and I had an emergency come up. He told me about a political endeavor that he was involved in, and it's very, very interesting. So, Matt, without further setup there, why don't you take it over and tell us how you entered into the political realm?
Yeah, so like so many other people, I've just become so frustrated with both parties. And I guess it was about a year ago, I knew the elections were coming up in November. I actually qualified and got on the ballot in the state of Florida to be an elected state representative. So I collected the signatures. It didn't cost anything. I went out there, and in the November ballot that'll go out, I'm listed right there with Barack Obama and Mitt Romney and every senator and down into the state races. But it was a very, very intriguing, intellectual, and educational exercise for me to see exactly how it happened. It's one thing to sit on the sidelines and talk politics and talk the future. It's quite another thing to get directly involved and see how it actually functions. So, I wasn't able to campaign very effectively. And I got to tell you, one of the things that was most disturbing was when I got really fired up about this originally, the only thing anybody wanted to talk about was how much money can you raise. And in these seats where you're not talking about a whole lot of money, it's a salary, either either and both of the parties will raise millions of dollars to put these people there. Well, the fact of the matter is that here we are just a few days out from the November election, and it's virtually a dead heat between the Republican and the Democrat that will appear on the ballot. And I will tell you that one of the candidates came to me and he said, look, man, it's dead heat. Right now you're polling in some significant numbers, and where you decide to throw your weight could very much decide this race. So, we talked. I got a real good feel for his issues. I knew where he was. And just today, as a matter of fact, I issued my formal endorsement to the guy. And I'm pretty confident it's going to make the difference in the race. The point of the matter is this. I got involved on the local level. I got out there and worked with my community, and then I worked with the candidates. And so I feel like I did a real important and functional thing to make it worthwhile. And it's just a lesson for everybody. You
said you didn't have a lot of time. I mean, did you do debates, or did you do
Look, the bottom line is I was blessed with a child. We got pregnant, and so I got a child on the way, and I decided I'd much rather spend every moment with my wife and child than sitting in a room with a bunch of politicians.
Right.
Right. But the fact of the matter is I still decided to stay on the ballot rather than just to walk away from it. But
let me ask you this. How did you end up, I mean, was it just the fact, and I don't think you said this yet, but you were, I almost said non-denominational, which you kind of were. You're not party affiliated at all.
Yep. Look, I tell everybody this. I was a lifelong Republican. I didn't leave the Republican Party. It left me, but that doesn't mean I like the other side any better. Having said both of that, that still doesn't mean that I have to sit out. And I don't buy what people say that you got to vote for one or the other in order to have your voice. I was very surprised. We just got our absentee ballots, and here in the state of Florida, there are 12 candidates for presidency on the ballot. And in a number of other statewide races, there are independents and write-in candidates. So, part of what we all have to do as informed citizens is not to sit back and complain about the two-party system, which we're all right to be very angry with, but we have to look for ways that we can try and be our own personal change. And, my commitment to that was to get on a ballot. Everybody else has to make that decision when they cast their individual votes. The fact of the matter is we've got a broken political process, but we've all got to be working to try and figure a way to fix it as best we can.
I agree with that 100%. And what I was trying to allude to there is, obviously, right, you congratulations, first of all, on a child on the way.
Thank you.
And, and I think you and I are about the same age, and I'm thinking to myself, oh, boy, because I have a 12-year-old, and I'm like, oh, boy, but then again, I see the kids, I see the parents walking around with a little 3-year-old, 4-year-old, 2-year-old, and I'm like, oh, I kind of miss those days. So it gives me hope that maybe, at this later stage, whatever, you know what I'm saying. Anyway, what I was trying to allude to is you're running as a non-party affiliated candidate and not going out and partaking in the advertising and the debates and that kind of thing. Yet just by the fact that you were not party affiliated, you were able to garner enough, I believe probably because you were not party affiliated, you were garnering enough attention that one of these guys came to you and asked you for your nod in order to sway. I think there's a really growing segment of the population that's never going to be reported during, the blue and red debates that are completely sick of both of them because they realize that nothing changes regardless if it's blue or red.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And frankly, the problem that I have is we doing this duopoly of a conversation where it's only one or the other. And again, the most important thing is when you look at ballots and see that there are alternatives out there. And we can complain about the parties and how they're not doing the justice bias. But, when you look at the ballots and see that there are other candidates out there, I think we all bear responsibility to say we want additional alternatives, and it's up to each one of us individually and in our thought communities and friends and family to push for alternatives and to hold these people's feet to the fire. I don't care who gets elected in November. I largely think it's going to be the same no matter what.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is that we as individuals have to make changes within our own communities and in our families, and I hope that's what it comes down to, frankly.
Well, and I don't know if you had a chance to see this or not yet, but in the realization that what'd you call it? Duopoly?
Yeah.
Duopoly. That's hard for me to say that one. I mean, I'll get into this after the break because I want to talk a little bit about Jill Stein and Sherry Hunkala, who were they're legitimate candidates, just as much as Mitt Romney or Barack Obama. And I want to talk about what happened to them when they tried to show up at the debate, the recent debate. We're going to be back with Matt Weidner, more Wide Awake News Radio, in just a few minutes. Hang tight, guys.
If you hang outside, don't come in. I'll only run and hide. Who can it be now?
Charlie McGrath of WideAwakeNews.com here with a message about Legacy Premium freeze-dried storable food, available at BuyEmergencyFoods.com. I recently returned from a trip to the manufacturing facility, and I'm here to tell you it was impressive. Over 50 employees working hard to produce the highest quality, best tasting, most healthy, certified GMO-free, freeze-dried storable food on the market. And now that I've been to the manufacturing facility, I can tell you, from receiving to production to shipping, these guys have one thing in mind. That is quality, plain and simple. Please, do yourself, do your loved ones a favor. Be prepared for an uncertain future with Legacy Premium freeze-dried storable foods available at BuyEmergencyFoods.com. You can call them at 888-543-7345. That number again, 888-543-7345, or better yet, visit them online at BuyEmergencyFoods.com.
You're listening to Charlie nationwide and worldwide on the Internet on the Rents Radio Network. Known worldwide as the most consistently fascinating, informative, and unique program on radio, the Jeff Rents program can be yours to listen to anytime, anywhere, whenever you want to hear it. For pennies a day, our subscribers can download any of Jeff's thousands of programs featuring a treasury of newsmakers, researchers, eyewitnesses, and incredible subjects, all in MP3, commercial-free, crystal-clear 56-bit digital sound, and take these often unforgettable programs with them wherever they go. As a subscriber, you can also listen live at airtime, online, anywhere in the world, or browse through our archives of over 10,000 hours of legendary broadcasts. Subscribe now by taking the link at the top of Rents.com. And enrich your mind with the most unique panorama of vital information and the best independent, honest journalism in radio. Look for the Subscribe Now link on Rents.com and give yourself the knowledge you need for these unprecedented times.
Heart-related health problems affect millions of people each year. Maybe you're one of the many who suffer from issues related to angina pain, high blood pressure, congestive heart failure, unbalanced cholesterol, irregular heartbeat, or clogged arteries. There is a solution that doesn't involve expensive prescription drugs that only mask the problem and leave you with horrible side effects. If you are ready to live your life free of sickness, pain, and fear, live your life with increased vitality, energy, and youthfulness, and experience your body healing itself, then you're ready for Heart and Body Extract from Healthy Hearts Club. Heart and Body Extract has a 23-year proven track record of using certified organic herbs that make up an excellent formula to balance and support the heart and circulatory system. In as little as 2 weeks, you can feel amazing results when your 2-month supply of Heart and Body Extract today. Call 1-866-295-5305 or go to hbextract.com.
Guys, welcome back to Wide Awake News Radio. I'm Charlie McGrath. Our guest is Matt Weidner, Weidner Law candidate Weidner. And I guess finish that up. Did you lend your support to one of these guys? And why?
I absolutely did because, look, this was a guy that came out and asked for my support. But more importantly, I looked at the campaign contributions. This is a critical factor in all these races, whether it's local or national. You can just Google campaign contributions, And I ignore what the signs say, ignore what the campaign pieces say, and I go directly to the campaign finance databases and look and see who's actually paying for these candidates. And when I looked at this particular candidate, I saw that there were neighbors and individuals writing $25 checks and $50 checks, and the other guy was getting big fat checks from corporate interests. You know, when I look at the power companies and the cable companies and cellular companies writing big fat checks to political officials, I know that when they come and knocking to raise my power bill and raise my cable or whatever else, they're going to do that. So,
right.
you know, I just encourage everyone to pay attention to those campaign finance databases. Every single state has them, and just troll through it and look and see who's writing the big checks at all these elections.
Let me ask you this on that topic, on these campaign finance databases. You're picking candidates in Florida and searching by the candidate. Is there a database that you're aware of you can share with us that allows an average person to go see where the big corporations are giving the reverse of that? You know,
yeah, absolutely. There's the best website is called OpenSecrets.org.
Been there many times. Yep.
Yeah. So, you know, that just allows you to troll through, and each state's a little bit different. In Florida, you know, you have the ability to search by donor or search by race. But I just encourage everyone, before you walk in that voting booth, if you haven't looked at who's financing the candidates, you're not making an informed vote. So you really need to go into either Open Secrets or any of the state election sites. Most of the states, I believe now, have pretty sophisticated sites that will give you down to the penny who's putting the money into the campaigns. And
right.
You know, for me, when I look at it, I'm looking for the guys that are collecting small checks from my neighbors, not the ones that are getting the big fat checks from the Goldman Sachs corporations.
No doubt about it. And like I said, I have a report here that's 15 pages long of outstanding money owed because of what began as the bailout phenomenon in 2008. And this is going to eventually end up in a video, a commentary video piece, because I want to spend the time to find out of the highlighted individuals in here who still owe you, the American people, money, how many of them have managed to still come up with enough resources to donate into our political system, because I guarantee you it's going to be in the millions and millions of dollars once I go through a site like Open Secrets, which I've visited and used many times. It is a great site. You know, I want – somebody has to be out there trying to expose the real cause of the financial mess that we have, and the cause of you know, the collapse of the United States of America. I know it sounds grandiose, but come on, man. We can't keep this going on for very much longer, and it's going to end up there. And you pointed out during the break that nobody in the mainstream, and I'm talking mainstream media, mainstream politics, nobody is talking about what brought us here. You know, again, we have these debates where it's about the economy, and nobody mentions – the Federal Reserve hasn't even been mentioned once. The only time it was mentioned is when it's tied to a phony terror plot. And in fact, at this debate, this recent debate, Green Party presidential candidate Jill Stein and her running mate, Sherry Hunkala, were trying to get in there and have their voice heard, and they were arrested for their efforts because they were asked to leave by armed enforcement agents. And when they said no, they hauled them off to jail. I mean, this is your – and the Green Party – I don't care if you're the Mickey Mouse Party. You have a right to be heard. But the Green Party is a legitimate party, and she is a legitimate candidate for president. As you said, in Florida, you had multiple names on your list there. We'll have multiple names on our list here in Montana. These people are not footnotes. They're not supposed to be pigeonholed and marginalized. They are, you know, they're American citizens that have every right to be heard. And when we see, and again, you got to go to YouTube to find it. When we see people, you know, here's the deal. Jill Stein in Massachusetts debated Mitt Romney for the governor's race, debated and beat him in Massachusetts. Now she's sitting on the asphalt outside of that university they had the debate at, and being hauled away in handcuffs because she wants to have her voice heard. So the notion of redress of grievances no longer exists in the United Stasi States of America. All right, I'm off on a tangent there. But, I mean, it just goes to your point that this two-party system is dominant, and if you think for 1 second that the best people are going to filter to that top level, forget about it. So get involved locally as you did.
Yeah, it's exactly right. You know, we only, to a certain extent, have ourselves to blame for not propelling people like Jill Stein higher up. Maybe it's best that she did get arrested because we're all having this conversation now. The fact of the matter is that when we get into these voting booths and we cast our ballots, when we start casting for third-party candidates, maybe that'll force the parties to wake up and listen and start paying attention. But, you know, we've each got a responsibility. We can either go like the other sheep and continue to fund this machine, or we can start thinking independently and really look at individuals and not at these parties anymore that, frankly, aren't serving our interests.
Right. I agree 100%. And when, you know, this whole debate thing is controlled, obviously, by the Republican Democrat Party. And let me ask you this in kind of in a little bit of contention here, because I've heard this argument before, and I've debated this argument before that we have ourselves to blame, and we do have ourselves to blame for plugging into the mainstream BS and the pop culture nation, and be more concerned about referees striking in the NFL than we have about the direction of our country. That is the fault of everybody who calls this place their home. But when it comes to our political system, man, you know what? A good guy like Matt Weidner, a good guy like Ron Paul, or you know, fill in the blank with a good guy or lady that you know, they don't have a chance, Matt. You're never going to get a vote for them on a national scale. They're never going to get the exposure from the mainstream media. They're never going to get the endorsement of the true power, which is the financial, these corporations that can give infinitum in order to fund these political juggernauts. So it's really, I mean, in a way, it's not fair to say we have voted these people in. No, we voted for the best funded candidate, you know, and they're predetermined who that candidate is going to be long before they ever make it to our ballot.
It's exactly right. You know, I talk a lot and I do a lot of writing about fascism, and I really encourage people to get more comfortable with that word fascism and what it really means. And at this stage of the game in our nation's history, and when I talk about fascism, I'm not talking about the necessarily kicking down your front door version of fascism. So although that's absolutely occurring all across this country, banks and institutions are kicking down the doors of people's property pursuant to directives of the federal government through the Fannie Mae servicing guidelines, but that's another story. The fact of the matter is we need to understand what fascism and economic fascism means. It means that the fusion of the interest between the corporate and the government interests have been fused together such that they're doing each other's bidding. And we see this manifested most completely with the too big to fail in the banking institutions, but it doesn't stop there. Of course, there's the food production companies and everywhere, but you know, they are voting their candidates into office, and then when their candidates go up to our state houses or to our national houses, they're not doing the people's business. They're doing the business of the corporations that paid the money to get them in there.
Yeah.
And, you know, again, that's where we have to have a new conversation, not to be talking about these duopolies or Republican versus Democrat, but have to understand the banking cartels and the Wall Street interests that sit in the middle of both of those parties. If you cannot engage somebody in that kind of a conversation to make that the primary focus, then you're just wasting your time.
I'm jealous. I think I'm hearing a bird in the background, and it's because you're in sunny, lovely Florida. and I'm up here with early winter weather surrounding us. But you're 100% right, and we'll open the last segment to any topics you'd like to cover, and I wouldn't mind getting an update on the battles for keeping people in their home. We're going to be back with Matt Weidner of Weidner Law and more Wide Awake News Radio in just about 3 minutes, guys. We'll be right back. Hey guys, Charlie McGrath here at WideAwakeNews.com, and I'm here to tell you I believe that Chris and the folks over at SeedsNow.com offer the best product at the best prices with the best service of anybody in the market. But don't take my word for it. Listen to what some of their customers have to say. Joshua in Florida writes, exceeded my expectations. Shipping was prompt and a number of my plants are already starting to sprout. Thanks for being great. And Ryan in California writes, I just received my Homestead Seed Bank, my all-in-one prepper pack, and seed-to-seed storage and growing guidebook, and I could not be more pleased. Thanks, Seeds Now. Now I can start growing and get off the GMOs. Keep up the great work. And the list goes on and on. Guys, it's time to make seedsnow.com an integral part of your long-term preparedness strategy. Please call them at 877-344-4669. That number again, 877-344-4669. Or better yet, visit them today at seedsnow.com.
If you're taking 1, 2, 5, or more nutritional supplements, please stop. Simplify your supplementation with Bio Superfood, the most advanced nutritional whole food supplement you can buy. Men, women, children, even Olympic athletes the world over have discovered Bio Superfood from BioAge.com. And now take just one nutritional supplement instead of many. The Bio Superfood formulas are whole food products composed with 4 of the most nutrient-dense algae found on Earth. Bio Superfood for the brain helps with focus, memory, clarity, and mood. If you can increase brain health, the rest of the body is a no-brainer. Bio Superfood has 0 toxicity and is safe for you and your family. Learn more and order your Bio Superfood formulas at BioAge.com, spelled BIOAGE.com, BioAge.com, or call 877-288-9116. That's 877-288-9116. BioAge, the age of advanced organics.
Are chemtrail geoengineering programs changing our weather and destroying our environment? Why in the world are they spraying?
They want to create a storm in the southeast, then they'll start engineering out over the North Pacific. That's where the tragedies will be.
Find out why critics are calling Why in the World Are They Spraying the most important film that is revolutionizing the environmental movement.
It's just going to get worse until the point where we're not going to be able to grow anything at all unless it's a Monsanto genetically modified, abiotic stress resistant seed.
Why in the world are they spraying? New international version with languages available from around the world. For 1 month, Rents listeners receive free shipping. Go to the banner on the front of the Rents website and click on the link for more info.
It's all about money, and weather is another form of commoditizing, the way the Central Command Group can commoditize another form of our life.
Why in the world are they spraying?
And if you control the weather, you're going to control the planet. It's that simple.
Make a promise, take a vow, trust your fears, it's easy now. Understand the voice within and feel a change already beginning. Oh, won't you tell me again? Oh, can you feel it? Oh, won't you tell me again?
Final segment of Wide Awake News Radio tonight, the 18th day of October, Thursday. I want to make this announcement real quick. I'm going to be on Jeff Rents tonight, the third hour, which is 9 o'clock if you're staying up this late, because I am, 9 o'clock west, midnight east. And I will keep the chat room up and going. I'll be in the chat during my segment on Jeff Rents tonight. So if you're still up and you want to listen to me and Jeff talk about some current events, then feel free to get back into the chat room, and we'll have you can listen to the program there, or go to rents.com and you can listen to it there as well. We are again joined by Matt Weidner, and I would like to get maybe a update on what's going on with your work as an advocate for keeping people in their homes. You'd mentioned, the ability of these too big to fail institutions to kick in doors at the behest of the government, with the full support of the government. I recently, I don't know if I spoke to you about this or not, I recently did a video on, I believe it's Citigroup coming up with a plan to take a bunch of these foreclosed properties and try to figure out how to securitize the rental income off of them. And here we go again. We're going to end up as complete and total debt slaves. And you made a great point that every time you write a check to one of these guys, it goes to New York City, gets a little bit of taken off the top, put into a bonus check, and we've just become nothing but sources of revenue. Little individual 310 ATM machines out there that are funding the financial industry, namely in New York City. What is going on in the world of foreclosures, in the world of too big to fail, swooping down and taking this stuff like vultures?
Well, Florida is sort of the epicenter of the foreclosure crisis. We got to understand what foreclosure means is the banks throwing people out of their houses, and whether you feel like, people are bad and should, pay their mortgage or get out. The fact of the matter is that you're dealing with dispossessing someone from a home, and that's something that no matter what you think, we have to figure out a way to humanely keep people in properties. And I wouldn't have such a problem with it if the economy were chugging along and the legal process were fair and equitable. But what I've found as a litigating attorney, someone who spends his time in court, is that there are two sets of rules. There are the rules that the banks and institutions are following, and then there are the rules that every one of us are supposed to be following. And I just can't stand the unfairness that exists in this country right now. I was raised to believe that our court system and judges existed to protect us and to even the playing field. And as I became a practicing lawyer, I understood that laws exist to provide for a stable society. And when you accept that that truly is the purpose of laws, to keep a set of rules that we all organize and agree to follow, because that has a larger societal purpose, it's terrifying to know that laws are routinely being broken by banks and institutions. I mean, it's become part of our national identity now that our government at all levels, local levels with judges and city officials all the way up to the White House, have decided that we need to let the banks and institutions and the white-collar criminals get away with whatever they want to get away with. And it's simply inconceivable to me that people don't appreciate that there would be real consequences for that. Well, it's a guerrilla battle, and I got to tell you, I've got multi-hundreds of people that I represent, and I keep my people in my houses because we use the tools at our disposal. We make the judges listen. It's like any other kind of hard work that you do with your hands or your brain or your soul. If you put your whole back into it, you can still do real good work. And across the state of Florida, we finally, after all these years, gotten a lot of judges to wake up. They're not as quick to believe whatever the bank is saying. And so we've really turned the tide in Florida where it's not so easy for the banks to come and throw people out. That doesn't exist, or it's not the same all across the country. I talk to lawyers and do trainings all across the country. And in some states where you don't have a judicial process, it's still very easy for the banks to come in using fraudulent paper and making fraudulent statements to throw people out in the streets. And one thing I want people to really understand is we've been real good at demonizing banks, Big Bad Bank of America or Citigroup or whatever. And the fact of the matter is that these folks, these institutions, are largely just debt collectors. They're not owed these mortgage payments most of the times. The fact of the matter is that it's largely owned by Fannie and Freddie and Ginnie and USDA and the Veterans Administration. They are the true owners of the debt, in addition to foreign trusts and entities. And we need to keep that in mind as our neighbors are getting thrown out on the street by Bank of America or Citigroup. They're not the ones that really own the mortgage. It really is the federal government that's directing these banks and institutions to throw our neighbors out into the street. And when we keep that in mind, we really have to start asking ourselves, well, what's the point of that? We cannot sit idly aside and allow our communities to be destroyed so that these concentrated institutions operating in Wall Street and at financial centers all around the world do fine. We have to start sticking up for one another in our communities and lending hands to our neighbors, our family, our friends, and keeping them in there, So that's the message of a practicing attorney down at the street level in Florida. There's a lot of good attorneys all across this country who are standing up and fighting for people. And I just encourage people to reach out to their court systems, because all across the country, the most powerful elected official, constitutional official, is your sheriff. And in many cases, the judges that are locally. So, we want to be good, law-abiding American citizens and have a government system that can protect us. That means we've got to respect our local officials and try and work within the systems that they have that exist for us.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And you're talking Freddie and Fannie here, and I'm just looking down at this list I have. These guys are quasi-government agencies, kind of like the Federal Reserve, quasi-government institutions that that are sitting on $116 billion in bailout for Fannie, $71 billion for Freddie.
Let me give you a good example of that. I had a hearing just a couple weeks ago, and a client had a short sale, and they got a waiver of deficiency from the servicer. Let's say it was Bank of America. So Bank of America said, you sell the house, and we're not going to come after you for a deficiency. In this transcript, a corporate representative admitted that while we provided that written waiver of deficiency, we will not guarantee, but that Fannie Mae, the actual owner of the note, will not be coming after this homeowner. And again, that speaks. Now, unfortunately, this judge just hit the roof. But that just speaks to the larger issue that we're finally starting to peel back what I call the wizard behind the curtain. I'm up here practicing for an oral argument that will be heard in an appellate court first week of November on this very issue. We have these banks and institutions that are doing the bidding of corporations. And my point is, under our existing laws, we have, of course, the right of confrontation. If somebody's going to sue me or accuse me, they have to come forward and identify themselves. And in this appellate case I'll be arguing, I want our appellate judges to stand firm to that principle and make the banks and institutions identify the fact that they're actually acting as bagmen and bill collectors for the federal government, Fannie and Freddie. We'll see how those appellate judges take that argument.
When you and you've argued this in non-appellate courts, correct?
Absolutely, down to trial level.
And what do the judges? What do the judges respond when you paint that picture? Because even me, I'm not a lawyer, but you make it it makes a lot of sense. That you had Bank of America in here, or whoever, fill in the blank, but it really should be Freddie or Fannie in here.
That's exactly right. A lot of times these judges were just too busy. They just were too inundated. But now that they've had a time to see, and one of the important things that everyone needs to keep in mind, part of the argument I use with judges, is that it's their pensions, it's their salaries, it's their retirement that are invested in all these corporations and all these mortgages. And so I try and pull it back and make it personal for them so that, you can't just throw this person out on the street without understanding that you may be impacted by this as well. And this growing awareness, this issue that the banks and institutions didn't really lend the money, it was Fannie and Freddie, is something that we're all starting to understand. I'm fortunate I've got really sophisticated, community-minded judges who start to understand it. And again, I just try to make it personal and local to that judge, to make the judge understand that when you throw your neighbor out into the street, you're hurting your community, and the only one that arguably benefits from it is some unidentified trust or Fannie Mae operating out of New York City or Washington, D.C. Mm-hmm. It's all about bringing it to a personal level and to a local level, and when I do that, I have a lot of success.
Well, I'm truly grateful we have attorneys out there like you who are fighting this battle. What do you see coming up? I mean, as far as last time we were on, we were talking about a tsunami of foreclosures that were still in the pipeline, and it seems to be, these monster institutions that are acting as enforcement agents for Freddie and Fannie and these other quasi-government agencies. They don't worry about the clock, right? They don't worry about public perception because they know the attention span of a gnat is in effect, and you have the two given to us presidential candidates that don't even touch Freddie and Fannie. I don't even think has been brought up yet. They don't even touch on this topic, so they know that they could sit back and the noise about too big to fail banks and people getting kicked out of their houses will slowly fade away, and as it does, more of these people are being thrown out, and more of this property and wealth is being put into the hands of these institutions. What do you see coming as far as foreclosure, waves of foreclosure? Is it still continuing at a rapid pace?
Look, I'm in Florida, and the numbers continue to increase. The only thing bothers me is the reporting on the number of foreclosures is all inaccurate. The numbers of people that are actually working is inaccurate. Right. Look, the economy isn't going to improve, and none of these circumstances are going to change until we have a vibrant economy with people working. Employment continues to decline, and real wages are actually declining. Forget what you read about in terms of, new jobs added or whatever.
Right.
Talk to neighbors. So, look, the crisis continues, and at some point in time it's going to reach a tipping point or a boiling point, and it's at that point in time when you want to be out of the cities and around people that you can trust and depend on. I don't see it getting any better anytime soon. The only thing I see it getting much, much worse, probably in some kind of apocalyptic or catastrophic event.
Well, that's a good note to leave it on a high note. All right. All right. Well, Matt Weidner, thank you very much. Weidner Law, do you have a website you want people to check out?
Yeah, it's Matt Weidner Law. You can just Google it. And, lots of good political and legal analysis.
And I can access your YouTube channel from there as well?
Absolutely, same place.
All right, Matt Weidner, thank you very much. I appreciate you joining me for this final hour of Wide Awake News Radio. Guys, stay tuned for Jeff Rense. He's coming up next. And as I announced before, 9 o'clock West, 12 o'clock midnight East, I will be a guest on the Jeff Rense program. So if you're inclined to join me here in chat, I'll be here. Hope to see you there. Again, enjoy Jeff. He's coming up next. Have a good night. Peace.